Hello, and welcome to FCUSA's College Pathway Program Module 201. This is geared for juniors and seniors, but all FCUSA players are welcome to attend. This is going to be a little bit more of a classroom-based session versus our live show last week. For those that don't know me, my name is Martin Brown. I am the National Director of Operations at FCUSA, and I am delighted again to be joined by the Executive Director of Learning Associates, Larry Blumenstick, who is here today with us, who are going to present the College Pathway Program, Module 201. Larry, good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you, Martin. It's good to be here.
Yep, excellent. So we are obviously following on from Module 101 last week, where we talked a little bit on freshmen and sophomores and what they should be looking to do in terms of prepping themselves for their college admissions and recruitment. So tonight we're going to focus a little bit more on juniors, and as it's such a critical year, my understanding is we're going to be going into a lot more detail on a lot more topics. What I'd like to take this opportunity to our audience right now is that if you do have any questions on any of the slides that do come up, please feel free to use the chat section located, it should be to the right of the slideshow, and type in any questions. All questions are private, they come to us directly, and then I will intercede during Larry's presentation and ask any questions that seem to be pertinent to the slide that we're on. If you have a general question, then please, feel free to write it in, and we will save it, and we'll have a little bit of a question and answer at the end of today's show. So, Larry, over to you. We're going to get going with Module 201. If anyone has any questions, again, please use the chat and feel free to contact us, and we will get Larry answering any questions and using his expertise. So, Larry, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Martin. As Martin said, this is Module 201, which is we decided to follow sort of the pattern that you would have in a college. 101 was last week, and it was meant to be very, very top line and an introduction for younger students. 201 was considered to be the way we'd go for juniors and seniors, but this being the first year, seniors may be far along. So my first comment here is if there are seniors who have particular questions, please be sure to write them out for Martin to check. We will try to help you out, but frankly, much of what we're going to talk about tonight has to do with juniors. The purpose of the entire College Pathway Program is to get ahead of the curve. That is, we want the student athletes, the scholar athletes at FCUSA to act purposely, with intention. We hope they aren't just going to sit back and wait for colleges to come their way, because while some may do that, it's not the best option. We're going to try to explain that to the families who are listening tonight, and we're going to try to explain that probably every time we speak with you. We want you to be intentional about the way you go about this process of being a scholar athlete in college. This outline that you're going to see as we move along is a guide to what's coming tonight in College Pathway 201. So keep in mind when we do get to the page that is the outline that there are some elements that will come later in the program. Martin will moderate your questions and comments, and he'll try to keep track of the time so that we get to everything. Some of the questions you ask may be relevant to what we're going over. Some of them may be relevant to material later on. And if we spill over, we'll deal with that one way or another. If there are unanswered questions at the end of the evening, Martin and I and the rest of the FCUSA staff will get together and we'll figure out how to answer your questions. Let me try out the software now. Here we go. Let's talk about goals. I know there's a lot of discussion of goals within your soccer club, and I don't just mean the goals that occur when the ball's in the back of the net. I mean, what are your goals? Your young person goals or your family goals? And here I break that down for purposes of discussion right now into 5 potential family goals. One is athletic scholarships, another is academic scholarships, another is need-based aid, another is admissions boost, and the last is fun. And you'll see that 3 of these are about money. So if we were to break them down differently, we would say one of the goals is money-oriented in order to have financial fit at the college. Another is an admissions boost or fit, academic fit at the college. And the other is social fit. Is the atmosphere at the college appropriate for the particular athlete? We want you to intentionally explore these topics, and we will loop back through them in future sessions, and you should be looping back through these topics over the course of the next, say, 7-8 months while you're being intentional and while you're making decisions. Beneath athletic scholarships, we particularize the fact that D1 and D2 have athletic scholarships. And I'll point out to you that D3 does not, no matter what anybody tells you. If you get D3 money, it's not an athletic scholarship. There are academic scholarships, both merit aid or the more general category of discounting, and those are based upon the achievements of the student. And then there is need-based aid, which is our system of providing additional resources for families who need it if it's documented correctly. I'm extremely interested in the admissions boost, the proposition that if you've been a dedicated soccer player, you may have a better outcome or an earlier outcome in college because of the hard work you put in. And I never forget the fun. It should be fun. Plus, the adjustment to college is a lot easier if you're joining 25 other teammates and you have an immediate group to turn to for support and for comradeship. The stakeholders are listed. Everybody has a part. I'll point out to you that in most situations, your high school coach has the least part. But in the end, it is the student who has to run the show. In a good college, in a good program, the coach wants to speak to the student. Is the student in a position to really negotiate with the coach? Not likely. Not likely. The coach is a professional. Coach has been doing this for a long time. So the student will look for input from family, from your club coaches, and possibly from me on how you manage that emerging relationship with a college coach. And if I can give you one little tip at this early part of the seminar, it is do not start to believe that you can outsmart the college coach who has been doing this for 5, 10, or 15 years. You probably can't. They do this all the time. Let me turn my page here. On the basis of pure statistics, the pure odds of playing in college are not all that good. For some, they will get to play. For some, they won't. But that does not have to apply to you. If we look at this, I have to look at a larger screen for a minute to repeat the statistics. Just bear with me here. If you look at these statistics, you'll see that there are, on the men's side, 450,000 high school participants. And once you get to NCAA across all 3 divisions, 24,900 some odd, only 5.5% of high school players wind up playing in the NCAAs. That's broken down in these columns into the 3 divisions. If we take out Division II, because we see a lot of international players in Division II, we just take that out for discussion to get a round number. we wind up with 4%. It's nice to work with round numbers. So 1 out of 25 soccer players is going to wind up playing in college. Why do I say that to you? Well, if you've got 25 players on your team or your high school team, and you look around and you're not the best player, then on a pure probability, like a roulette wheel with a ball dropping into a slot, the probability is not good. I do not say that to dissuade you from trying. I say that to persuade you that you need to go about this intentionally. You cannot be passive personal destiny. These are the odds that arise out of the large number of players who are seeking a spot on a college team, especially those who are seeking that spot in advance. So, what are you going to do about that? Well, I hope you're going to do something, because if you just wait, you're decreasing the likelihood of a good outcome. I want you to bend the curve in your direction. You're doing it with the things you will learn here tonight, which is only about an hour, but you will learn over time here and in other places. These are the pieces of tonight's presentation. We want to talk about a soccer resume. We want to talk about an academic profile or a resume. And if you think that it's only about soccer, I think you are sorely mistaken. We want to talk about a video, and Martin may jump in when we get to that point. We want to talk a little bit about sorting out college campus showcases, because along with the video, that's a place where you can potentially be seen by coaches. Then we're going to talk about the college side of things, the common application, because it's a shortcut. Not every college is on the common application, but many are. And then at the end, we're going to talk about net price calculators, and that's a part of financial aid. So if you have questions about those later pieces, keep in mind that Martin will be accumulating them. We'll be watching the time, and we'll try to get to that topic to answer your questions. The athletic resume. We're going to talk about whether a recruiting form or a custom resume will serve your purpose. And this is a stilted sort of environment. We're not having a conversation, you and I. It's a little bit like a lecture. I apologize for that, but we'll do the best we can. If you're on an age group national team, you really don't even need a resume, right? But that's a very small pool of people. These are the product specifications. If you go to try to buy something on Amazon, you're going to check the specs, right? You're going to see what size it is. You're going to see what kind of power it has. You're going to see if it fits your needs. And a good product might not fit your needs because of the particulars of that product. Your resume, whichever one you create, is your effort to market yourself into a marketplace in which there are 500,000 other students on the men's side applying. So, do you want a stock item, or do you want to produce something for that sophisticated buyer, the coach, that is tailored to you? Because in the early yourself out, hopefully to get to the point where you're selling yourself. What I'm saying is there's a marketplace of colleges. There are 4,000 four-year colleges. There are more two-year colleges. Many of them, or almost all of them, have soccer programs. It's not like other sports, which are rare. So you're trying to develop a few suitable targets that are interested in you. You're trying to find the marketplace. In order to find the marketplace, you have to have some tools. Now, ultimately, if you are attractive to a coach and to a college, that equation may get reversed a little bit. It could get to the point where you're no longer trying to market or sell yourself into programs and colleges, and you could become desirable to several coaches, several colleges, several programs, and that would be wonderful. But that's not likely to happen right away. It's more likely to happen as a result of the work you put in. Let me go to the next slide. So what I've given you here is something that was used for an entirely different purpose.
Larry, I just wanted to reiterate from your point with the athletic resumes that one of the things we have built internally here in the last couple of months at FC USA is the ability for all of our teams to put their own college booklets together, and using the information the players put in, similar to what you had talked about. So that is something that is new this fall, and teams should have been able to be able to print out a booklet on each on their whole team, which has the pertinent stats for each of those players. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that, but it's something that we do have the option to do, and it is new that we've had this fall.
How are you using that, Martin?
Through our internal system, each player has their own account, and they're able to fill out the college ID questionnaire, and that from the answers from that, which is GPA, extracurricular activities, SAT scores, ATC scores. It's a very simple, but it's something that gives the coaches on the sideline of showcases something to look at during games. It's got the player's number, graduation number, so it is something that is quite in detail, and we're quite happy with how it's come out, and that's something that they'll be passing out during the showcases.
Excellent. That's why I was asking, because I, as Martin well knows, I have two grown children who were soccer players for many years, and these books are extremely important. I'm going to encourage you to find ways to make your resume within FC USA a little bit unique. And the tools that I'm going to give you here are just a few. There are many others. I pulled up this equestrian resume. This is one that was anonymized and made general based upon a horseback rider. And the purpose that I'm showing it to you for is that you can see that this person, whose details have been taken out of this resume, found ways to speak about themselves and their experience that was unique to them. So the fact that the folks at FC USA are providing you with a format to enable you to distribute your resume is outstanding. Your job, in conjunction with that, is to figure out what is unique about you. So if you get this afterwards, or if you need this, we can provide this to you, not because it will teach you how to have a soccer resume, because this will teach you how to jump over, barriers on a horse. But the purpose is to look at what's individual to you. Are you very fast for short distances? Are you durable for long distances? Do you have a great leap? Are you extremely quick and explosive, even if you don't have incredible speed? Do you jump high? Are you tall? Are you strong? Think about those things that are unique to you and not unique to every player, because no one player is everything, and try to build that into your resume. That's what this equestrian did. There is another source for you to consider in putting together that resume that you're going to have on the FC USA resource. Sorry about that. FC USA. Most colleges have a recruiting questionnaire online, and when you look through them, you will see the categories that they like to cover. I work with a lot of scholar athletes across any number of sports. I do not recommend that they start with the recruiting questionnaire, because if they do that, they are like every other player who has started with the recruiting questionnaire, but for some different answers. But they appear in the same way in the first instance. I do, however, encourage every one of you to look at a few colleges that might be interesting to you and to see what questions they ask. What indeed do they want to know about you? And then, as you do that, think about those things in which you might be extraordinary. If you are extraordinary, make a note, build it into your FCUSA resume. Be extraordinary so that the coach who is first reading your material has something that pops for them, something that catches their attention. Because, as I said, you're marketing. Just like selling a car, until you have a real relationship, you're just marketing. Now, Cornell is not going to be the same as another. And interestingly enough, when I was looking for examples, I came across Franklin and Marshall. I thought, let me be slightly less selective with an excellent college in Division III. And we find that they're using RecruitSpot. If RecruitSpot succeeds, then it will make resumes homogeneous. I hope you understand what I'm driving at there, because I have no feedback from you. What I mean is, the better they do at getting students to use their site, the more uniform those resumes will look. It's a little less true of the FCUSA system because it's smaller, and it's even less true, and you make it less true, if you work at individualizing your resume on the site, and if you are conscientious and intentional about pointing out your unique qualifications. You have some, let me tell you that. If you think you don't, you haven't thought hard enough. What else can you do? Well, my students start off with a letter, and if they have a resume ready, they attach the resume to that letter. Why? Once again, they're being intentional, and they're telling a coach about their interest in soccer and their interest in the college. If you have not explored your interest in the college when you start to write to coaches, then you haven't heard me talk before, or you're ignoring me. I do not believe that students should have very many communications with a coach that fail to mention the assets of the college, particularly those assets of the college that are meaningful to the student. This young man is an academy player in Canada, and he's also a very good student. He's going to try to be recruited at some highly selective colleges. So what is he doing? He's telling them a little bit about himself as a player, introducing himself, says how he likes to play, because if the coach has a different system into which it doesn't sound like this young man will fit, he's not going to be interested, right? He's also telling the coach that he's a pretty hot student. He's in a special talented program. He has a high GPA, and he doesn't yet have test scores, but he's prepared to provide them later. Now, this student is marketing himself to every coach to which this letter goes. And if he has a resume, he will attach it. I have students who are basketball players, who are lacrosse players, who are tennis athletes, who are track athletes, and of course, soccer athletes, and many more. And if they listen to my advice, and if they follow my advice, they send a letter first. They establish a relationship with that coach so that later on, they're not marketing and selling. Later on, they're having a conversation in which the coach is potentially interested in them. Academics. How many people, raise your hand for Martin if anybody has told you before that it's not only about soccer, that academics are a big piece of this. You getting any responses there, Martin?
Not yet, but I'm sure it's something that I know we have pushed through.
So optimistic.
We've talked about it a lot, obviously, last week as well, that, the soccer is a big piece, but the academics are a huge piece. And that's one of the reasons our college pathway program, I think, is a lot different to other clubs, is because we do place a high expectation on the academic side.
The coach who is talking to a player is measuring a few things before he's deciding whether that player is genuinely interesting. He may very well be a good communicator. He may very well respond, and they're permitted to respond at any time. There are times in the process when they can't reach out to players, but they can always respond. But they could just be courteous. What causes the coach to have a little more interest? Well, on one side, that coach comes to the perception that the player can impact his program, wants to have some impact in that first year, not necessarily lead the team, but certainly be able to take someone off the field, give them a break, add a little something to the formula, and if more, then better. But there's another whole piece to that. Can that coach and will that, can that player and will that player come to the college? Because the coach does not admit players to the college. Admissions admits players to the college. So if you're speaking to the coach about soccer alone, and he or she is responding to you about soccer alone, you only have part of the conversation going so far. It is very rare that any coach is actually recruiting a player who hasn't provided their entire academic profile, their grades, their transcript, the rigor of the program that they've been involved in their high school, and their test scores. If that hasn't been provided, you're just in a conversation. That's not a recruiting conversation. Recruiting occurs a little bit later in that process, and we'll talk about that. So,
Larry, we did actually have a question that pertains a little bit to the resume and the profile that you're talking about. But also ties in a couple other things. So I don't know how much in detail you want to go into it at this point. But the question was, as a junior, how many schools should they have on their list to who they should be marketing themselves to? So how many schools on their list should there be at this point as a junior as they send out their resumes and their profiles to those college coaches?
If the junior doesn't have any serious conversations going on with coaches, then I think they should have a list of 20 colleges or so that they're sending materials to. And as time goes on, that list will net to how serious the conversation is. So will a student keep up a conversation into late junior year, beginning of senior year with 20? Certainly not. If that's the case, then there's no recruiting going on. But I think it's very fair to start with 20. And as coaches indicate their interest or their lack of interest, you adjust that number. If you get serious interest from 5 coaches within 3 or 4 months of putting yourself out there, well, that's a pretty good group, especially if they're diverse colleges. You can work with that group. But if coaches are turning you down, then you need to replace them. If coaches are saying they're not interested, if coaches are saying they already have their class, that's a different thing. It's not a very specific answer, but if someone came to me fresh and had not yet written any letters and sent any resumes, I would encourage about 20. I hope that helps.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Larry.
So I want to see where I was. I'm going to click on the next slide. These sample resume categories are those that I use for athletes and non-athletes. This is just an idea of what you can consider for your non-athletic resume. Now, we have students who produce 2 resumes, whether they're athletes or whether they're artists or whether they're the thespians or singers, any sort of talent. Sometimes there are 2 resumes because resumes should not go beyond 1 page for a high school student. Unless you've published widely in many peer-reviewed journals, you have no business having a resume beyond 1 page, but you might have 2 resumes. And if that's necessary, I think it's a better way to do it. So this is something which we can make available to you, which reminds you of the areas in which you might want to outline items for your non-athletic resume. There could come a point in time where a coach with whom you haven't shared such a resume asks for one because they want to carry it over to admissions. That's good news. You should have it ready. The soccer video. Well, not every coach that might get interested in you, and not every coach at every college in which you might be interested, will be able to see you play early on. Rarely, but sometimes they'll never get to see you play. But they want to. If they're going to spend money on you, or if you're a heavy lift in admissions and they're going to go over there and argue for your admissions, well, they want to see something live. In fact, they want to sit with you, right? They want to know you're a person of good character because they certainly don't want to recruit someone who's going to cause them a problem. Something coming up here, Martin? So
Yeah.
Martin has something to share with you. I'm going to give it to you here. I know you're working on something very special with soccer videos. It sounds very exciting. Sounds really quite unique.
We're currently beta testing a product that will allow our members to create video highlights. Hopefully in the spring we'll be doing a continuous test, and we're looking to potentially roll it out in the fall. But what we are looking towards, whether it's this product or others, is the ability for our parents and players to create their own highlight videos so that they can send them to college coaches. We do believe in today's world that video is one of the prime resources that coaches can take a look at. As athletic budgets have shrunken a little bit, it's been a case that they might not be able to go to 10 showcases. Maybe they can only go to 5 or 6 now. So we want to make sure that we can provide them with video of our players, highlights of our players, to maybe make that decision that they should come and see them live. Every college coach will obviously tell you that they want to see the player live at the end of the day, no matter what. But obviously we want to be able to be at least in the conversation so that they come and see our players live. So we believe that video can help that, and we are actively making sure that we can offer that to our parents and our players. So it's something that we are looking to continue to have options to, and we're currently testing some software that will allow us to do that, and hopefully rolling that out for next year as we continue our testing. But we are looking at other options as well, because we do believe it's an important part of the recruiting process.
Excellent. So think of it this way, if you like. It's crass. I don't know how many folks who are listening to this are the parents who have bought cars. I've never bought a car without driving it first. Maybe somebody does that, but you want to drive it first. The coach wants to see you live first. And a misconception that people have is that coaches will come to showcase tournaments and that they're shopping. Count the number of fields, count the number of teams, count the number of players, and think about the fact that the coach can only be in one place at one time. So really what you're doing with your videos, with your resume, with your letters, with your prior contact to the coach, even if you don't get a response, even if it seems as though it isn't useful, is you're trying to get a coach to put you on the schedule for that tournament that you're going to be attending and he's going to be attending. And they're good at this. They know when they want to watch. So you're all driving this marketing to the point where the coach may be enamored of you and get interested in continuing that conversation. So the soccer video that the club is working on is a critically important piece of this in order to drive them to see you live. Martin will give you a lot of guidance on this, as will your coaches. It is a highlight video, but it is also a game video, meaning run of play, mistakes, recovery runs, movement off the ball. It is not you scoring goal after goal after goal to music. That doesn't impress coaches. It's a teaser. I wrote that down in my own notes. It's a teaser. Coaches don't buy based upon a video, but they communicate and they come to see a player based upon a video. Showcases. Well, showcases are almost always fun. And the college showcases are a little bit fraught. Bart?
Yeah, Larry, just a quick note that we just got a notice that some people are having a little trouble sending questions through that if they're watching this on their iPhone. So if you are on your iPhone and you have looked to send in a question and you're not able to do so, you can also email that question to myself. That's mbrown@thefootballclubusa.com. We'll also then get those questions out to you as well. So if you're having any issues sending any questions through the chat on certain devices, then please email me the questions brown@thefootballclubusa.com, and I can also take the questions that way, and I'll be sure to take them to Larry.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about college showcases for just a minute or two. I pulled this down right off of the Indiana University site. Indiana has won some national championships, and even when they don't win, they're frequently there. So what they're selling when they're putting their soccer camp out there is high-end program, right? If you look at this, however, they're talking about providing coaches from Division 1, 2, and 3 programs. Why? If you look at the lower part of this marketing piece, it's because young people who have played at Indiana or been assistant coaches at Indiana have moved on. There's nothing yet available in this marketing piece that tells you who's coaching. It could be right, it could be wrong. The likelihood, however, that you will go to Indiana soccer camp and as a result of that be recruited is extremely small. And if you are a junior and you're getting into this coming summer or maybe late spring, if they can squeeze in some camps before summer, let's understand that a Division I team which has won national championships probably has its top players and a few more slots already identified. So, does this make sense? Maybe not yet. Mark?
Larry, sorry, just a question. I know we're going to go take a couple of slides back on video. We did get a question that comes in that says, how long should the video be? And obviously, what are the best highlights to show? I know you talked a little bit about that before with recovery runs and those elements, but in particular, how long should the video be when they're sending them to college coaches?
I can't imagine the reason myself, and I really would look to you for this also, Martin. I can't imagine a reason for a video to be longer than 10 minutes because I don't imagine that you ought to ask a coach to watch you on video for more than 10 minutes. And I think that if Martin was watching a video of a player for 10 minutes, if it's a good video, if it shows some of that player's top skills and if it shows that player behaving as a teammate, Martin knows whether or not he wants to have a further conversation and see that player. What do you think about that, Martin? 10 minutes sound about right?
Yeah, I think 10 minutes definitely at the max. As a coach in today's world, they're, looking at a lot of players. I think 5 to 10 minutes certainly is a good guide. I wouldn't certainly do more than 10 minutes. I think that you want to show various parts of your game when you do highlights. But one of the things that I think is important for people to realize is that there's a lot of companies out there that can do highlights. I don't think it's a necessity to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on highlight videos with graphics and transitions and all of those things. It's not what the coach is looking for. The coach is looking to see what can that player do, and you want to show that, in a 5 to 10 minute video, the various parts of your game. Doesn't have to be high quality, cost budget. That's not going to be the difference between a player being accepted to a school or not, just because they had a really high budget video versus you had done something filmed by your parents on an iPhone. So I certainly think that 5 to 10 minutes is enough, but don't be concerned about having to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars getting video. It's not going to be the difference in the quality of the video. It's what's on the video by the player.
I'd be more suspicious of a high quality video. I'm wondering how real it is. And Martin, let me ask you a question for people to hear, because I've been through this a little bit in a couple of sports. What do you do with goalkeepers? There's a lot of time when a keeper might not have something going on, because I did have a coach suggest to me that the keeper go through a workout with their coach, and that their goalkeeper coach take them through all the different things you would normally do in a workout. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that particularly for a goalkeeper, a skill position, I think you can take practice, and that's something that people also forget. You can include video from practices. Whether you're doing the right things in practice or in games, yes, coaches are going to want to see what you do in games, but you can show them your abilities in a practice too, and particularly for a goalkeeper, that's a great place to do it. A lot of showcases will have a goalkeeper showcase between games. I definitely think that they are good for goalkeepers, particularly if a coach is at that showcase. It's a good way for you to show your skills, but certainly, don't be afraid to take video from practices as well as game footage, totally for goalkeepers.
Coaches have said to me they want to see, and I don't talk to coaches that much about players, but I talk to them to understand what it is that they're looking for. I don't advocate for players with coaches. I think students should do that. But coaches said to me they just want to see how the player strikes the ball too. And they can see that. They'll see that in the practice. So that sort of video is useful. Let's move on. I'm going to show you a different marketing piece. This is the women's soccer camp at Amherst.
Did have a
Amherst
specific
College.
On college. Ahead. On college ID camps, Larry. So the question is, are college ID clinics worth attending if invited? Why do they charge a fee? It appears like a marketing scam, is the question that has come in.
Well, that's a pretty extreme view, but it might be accurate. College coaches, I have some statistics. I didn't include them here because they were looking pretty old. College coaches in soccer, at all but maybe a couple, they hardly make a living. They need to do other things to make ends meet. They need to be coaching a club. And if their college supports them and provides them with a facility to run a camp at little or no cost, that's one of the ways they make ends meet. So, calling it a ripoff, well, maybe that's a little bit harsh, but calling it a profit center, that might be accurate. Now, if you look at the one that I put up on the screen, this is what I used to look for my own children. You'll see this is not for any one particular year, but at Amherst College, Jen, who has been the coach there for many years and certainly has a strong position with them, brings in coaches typically from among Bates, Boston College, Bowdoin, Colgate, Dartmouth, Dickinson, Hamilton, and Middlebury. Now, there's a variety of selectivities there. There are D1 and D3 programs. Within D1 and D3, there are better and weaker programs. So that's the thing to look for if you're looking at a college-based showcase. If you're looking beyond the fun and the opportunity to play with some different players and possibly get a little coaching, but you're looking for something that will be effective, what you want to know is, are there coaches with authority from various colleges at various academic levels and at various soccer levels? And in fact, although this is good in its variety, it's not excellent. I mean, the least selective college here is probably Dickinson College, which is still quite selective. And the most selective is Amherst. So, and in terms of the quality of the programs, I mean, similarly, you have a lot of NESCAC programs here, and then the NESCAC, a couple players can make a difference from year to year. They're all good Division III programs. So if you were talking to me, and Martin will know a lot of this, if you were talking to one of us about a particular camp at a particular time and telling us what you are going to be giving up to go to that camp, and if you have nailed down which coaches are going to be there, just not history, but what are going to be there, then you can assess how valuable that camp is. It's always good for fun, and it always puts you on a campus. But in terms of recruiting, it might not be. I hope that's helpful. It's a little obscure, I know, but every player is different and every camp is a little bit different. How many of you have not opened a Common App, and how many of you have? Those of you who have not opened a Common App, I suggest your parents not give you dinner tomorrow. Those of you who have, yes, you can eat tomorrow. There is no reason I can think of offhand for you not to open a Common App. This is the tool that the vast majority of colleges use for submitting applications. Even if they don't use this tool, this accumulates the same kind of information that almost every college asks for. There are parts of the Common App that are just downright dumb, filling in information. Some of it you have to ask your parents about. Did they go to college? Where did they go to college? When did they graduate? Hopefully, if they remember, and if they don't, they'll look it up. There are a lot of pieces of data to add there. And in addition to that, there is in the Common App an activities page, which enables you to start to list all your different activities, extracurricular activities, out-of-school activities. And that's going to be useful at some point or another. It's also going to be necessary at some point or another. Every student I work with, regardless what age they are now, regardless whether they are scholar athletes or scholars or artists or musicians, when I start working with them, I have them open the Common App. If they're really young, then there's less to be done with the Common App, but they might as well know how it works when the time comes. CommonApp.org, it's very simple. It used to be that this was a problem because the Common App every summer would wipe out all the data it had and start anew on August 1st. That's no longer the case. It hasn't been for a few years. The Common App rolls over the basic data, not the college-specific data if you've looked at that or filled something in, but your basic profile and all that information rolls over from year to year. And in fact, the maintenance window is down to about a week last summer. Who knows if it'll get shorter. The ability to hold data keeps increasing, therefore, it's not as important for them to clean out their archives. Every student in the club, every player in the club should open an account with Common App. Save those passwords, make sure you have them available, and take a look at what's in there, start to fill that out. Waiting for the next page to come here. Okay. One thing to be careful about and not to rush through is if you authorize communications from the Common App, it's not going to be coaches, which is what most of you are interested in. So I'm suggesting that when you look at those check marks, don't authorize communications. Otherwise, every college you ever list might start marketing to you electronically because that's the cheap way. If you choose to do it, that's on you. That's fine. It's not my recommendation. And the first part you should work on when you open your Common App is the profile. It's the personal information. One of the things we could do over the next few months, and this is a very busy time for me for the rest of this month, one of the things we could do is I can open a sort of phony Common App in my name. I can do that. I can put in, say, 10 colleges. You can play with it. I will give out through the club the login and the password. If you abuse it, I'll shut it down. But if I put in 10 colleges, you folks could put in up to 10 more. I suggest nobody put in more than one additional college. And you can start to see what that looks like. There are 20 college slots possible in the Common App. That's max. So if we're going to do this, I suggest you communicate with the club and you tell us one college you would like Larry to put into his Common App. And in that way, I can lead you through something because I can look at it from time to time and see what you're doing. You can see what I'm doing. You can see what others are doing. I think this could be a valuable resource in addition to opening your own. So once again, do not send in 3 colleges because don't be greedy. There are other people who may want to participate. Send in the name of one college. Send it in to someone at the club to pass along to me. It's going to take me some time before I do this because there are deadlines coming up for my students and I have other things that need to happen. But we will open up a Common App that everybody can look at in case you're getting confused with your own. I hope this sounds like an attractive proposition. If people start to do things that are too weird with it, I'll just close it down. But I don't necessarily think that'll happen. I think that if you consider it to be valuable, then you'll be careful with it. All right, financial aid. For years, even before Jersey United became a part of FC USA, we've been doing some education around this proposition that all money is green. Why do I say that? Well, people get a little bit tied up with athletic money as though it's different than other money, and it's not. And in fact, in soccer, being an equivalency sport under NCAA rules, it's relatively small. It can be taken away. It can be divided up. They can make space for a new player next year. Your athletic money can be reduced. There's no real magic in athletic money as opposed to any other money. And I said before that Division III can't give athletic scholarships. Let's be really clear about. In Division III, they do not have the necessary pieces of paper any place on campus to give an athletic scholarship. Nobody gets an athletic scholarship. It's a unique animal. Likewise, in the Ivy Leagues in Division I, there is no such piece of paper to enable a coach to offer out an athletic scholarship. So why are they magical? They're not. They're just a piece of a package, particularly for the family that has a substantial need and cannot afford college without money, but it doesn't have to be in the form of financial aid. And we have students getting all sorts of aid, scholar athletes and not. So, athletic aid. Athletic aid comes out of its own pot. It doesn't invade the pot of money, which is the endowment from which need-based aid comes. It doesn't invade the pot of money, which is the endowment from which merit aid comes if colleges give merit aid to the students who seem to have either a very high profile for that college or a unique talent that the college is looking for. It is its separate pot of money. It's independent of need or merit, although it could be part of a package with need and merit. And it's always tied near 100% to team performance and membership. If you're no longer a member of the team, you're not going to get that scholarship. I could be wrong on this, but I don't believe anybody's giving soccer scholarships that last for 4 years if you don't stay on the team. And with athletic aid, there's a national letter of intent process. That national letter of intent isn't issued without some confidence in the student. It should be part of a full financial aid package, but it is not a guarantee of admission. And whether it is a pretty firm commitment to admission depends on the college. There are different procedures, there are different policies, there are different strengths in the college. It is separate. Most national letter of intents result in an admission. That's true, but it is not a 100% acceptance. And certainly if grades go down or if there's misbehavior, the national letter of intent has nothing to do with what admissions will decide. Admissions admits students. Coaches, no matter how powerfully they talk about themselves, do not admit students. Admissions admits students. Now, need-based aid is based upon the finances of the family. The first thing that the college looks at in need-based aid is the assets of the student themselves, if they have some. The second thing they look at is the parent income. The third thing they look at to a limited extent is parent assets. And that is determined on the form that's called the FAFSA. FAFSA looks at the income of the family prior year before attending college, 2 years before attending college. That's a relatively new development, but to anybody who's listening here and doesn't have an older student, it's the way it's always been, so it doesn't much matter. Some colleges, especially private colleges, also require the CSS profile form. That looks at assets more carefully, including business assets and others. So before those colleges give away their own money, they want to know more about the family's finances. FAFSA and the CSS profile and the aid that is granted pursuant to those documents is reviewed annually. It can go up or it can go down. And when the aid is awarded, it could be grant aid or self-help aid. It could be it could be loans. It could be work on campus, and that's certainly very different than grant aid. All of that is determined by the wealth of the university. If you are a good enough player and if you are smart enough to go to Princeton, you're going to get some good aid unless your family's earnings are around $175,000 a year. And if your family's earnings are only $35,000 a year and you can get admitted to Princeton, then you are going to go for very little and Princeton's going to pick up the rest. That's an example of great wealth. Princeton has about the highest endowment per student of any university in the country. So you should not think, if you've been a good student, and I'm encouraging you to be a good student, you should not think you can't go to college. Merit aid, the last category, because we're running down to the time here, merit aid is based upon academic merit or other talents. And it's frequently tied, say, to 3.0 or 3.5 GPA. As you move up in the selectivity of colleges, merit aid tends to disappear. So I don't know if Martin has any other questions, and it's possible the questions will come in afterwards. And since this program is newly developed, we'll figure out how to answer any questions that come in after our time is up. Bart, what do you have to say?
Yeah, we have a couple. I know you've got one more slide on the net price calculator center. And then after that, we have a couple of questions that are for you. But again, if anyone has any additional questions, now would be the time to send them in to us and we'll get them. But we definitely have a couple of questions based on some of these things.
Let me do the net price calculator then. If you're wondering whether you would get aid, here's a good source. This net price calculator can be customized for colleges in which you take an interest, and the wealthier they are, the better it will look. Now, keep in mind that the net price calculator is both extremely useful and sometimes useless. It is an estimate. There are a lot of things that go into what your aid award might or should be, but it will produce for you something called the expected family contribution, or EFC is the acronym that's used. And as you become familiar with this, it will be useful. It is not conclusive, but it will potentially change your mind. If this is the first student going to college, and if you are a middle class earner, it may change your mind about what's possible in colleges. We find that it changes people's minds. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. If we're going to go into this at some point, it's going to take a lot more effort than we have time for today. But please, parents, look at this before you make a decision that is uninformed. Be sure that you understand what college can cost if you're applying to a college that has wealth. What do we have, Martin?
Yeah, we have a question here that players are senior and they currently have two options on the table. Should they wait until the March showcases and keep their options open, or should they be making a decision now? So, kind of, what is the timeline on making those decisions once they get potential offers from coaches and they're along that process of admissions?
Let me see if I understand the question first, because you were breaking up just a little bit. There's a player who has two options on the table?
Yes, to play soccer.
And
yeah.
those two options are supported by two different coaches at two different colleges.
Correct. And they would like to know, should they keep their options open and continue on to the March showcase season, or should they accept one of those currently, or should they keep their options open? What is the timeline that you would recommend on making the final decision of where they should go?
This is a junior?
Yeah.
So I would ask the family if they've specifically said to coach, what is your timeline? When do you need a commitment and why? Also, I want to know at that point, on behalf of that family, if the package is complete. Is there a complete preliminary read on the financial aid package? And then, because I don't know the family or the student, has the student really explored the programs? What I'm thinking as I speak is, if a student does have genuine interest in December of their junior year, probably it's not the last interest they will get. So, is it the right college? Do they have the right programs? And is the financial situation suitable? Is it a financial fit, or is the family being asked to go through a great deal of pain given what the package is? If there's a great deal of pain involved, while there's some risk in saying, I have to wait, have a frank discussion with that coach. This is where we actually get to the point where it's difficult to negotiate with a professional negotiator in their own field. So, Mart, if that person who asked that question wants to send in the college, if they want to reveal the college, the two colleges, the offer, and something about the student, then within a week or so, I'd be happy to give you information to have a conversation with them. How does that sound?
Yep, that sounds good. I'll pass that on. And then I think we've got time for one more question, and that is somebody, this is their oldest child, and where is the best places to kind of get some more resources on some of the information, things that they should be doing?
Is that for college as you perceive the question?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a first child, so they're unfamiliar with this whole process. All right. Can you tell from the question which state they're in?
New Jersey.
Okay. In New Jersey, I think the best thing a young high school student can do when they're trying to identify college is go to a few visits that are nearby and start to listen carefully to what the information session pitches. Now, some of that information is aspirational. It's what they'd like to do. It's what they'd like to offer. But the student can't really figure out what they want out of a college until they hear it. So it is pretty easy to go over to Drew University, and you have friends there. And I think I introduced you to Lenny many years ago over there. So you can go there and you can hear what they have to say. You don't have to want to go to Drew University. It may be in your backyard and not something you want, but they will tell you what it is they're offering and how they're structuring their college. And go take a short ride to Lafayette College and find the distinctions in what you're hearing. Once you've visited 3 colleges or 5 colleges that you've listened to carefully, you'll start to understand what might fit for you. I do not care if the academic fit is right when you first visit. If you're a straight A student and you go to Drew and you think it's not as challenging as you'd like, fine, you still heard something and learned something. If you have an awful lot of C's in your transcript, more than Lafayette would want to see, fine, it doesn't matter. Listen to what they have to offer, because if you hear those kinds of offerings at a college that you can get accepted to, you've just learned something valuable. So I would say don't get on an airplane to go visit, but visit a few places that are different. Because if someone asks you, do you want large, small, urban, rural, Division I, Division III, if you're a nice young person, you're going to answer and you know nothing yet. So don't put yourself in that position. Go learn something by visiting a few colleges.
Okay, well, Larry, I want to thank you for your time this evening. That was module 201. Our next module was 215. We will be doing another live show, and we will be taking some of the questions that we've got over the course of the first two modules, and we will be answering those specific topics in detail. One of the hot topics we have had is college ID camps, as well as the financial aid, merit aid, need-based aid, etc. So I think those will definitely be a couple of questions that we will have. If you have other questions as players or parents over the next couple of months, then please feel free to send them to either your coach or your director of coaching of your local club, and we will be sure to include them in module 215, which will take place in January. So with that, I want to thank you, Larry. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I hope that the information was helpful, and if you do have any questions or follow-up, you can certainly reach out to your local DOC. You can also, feel free to reach out to your coach as well with any additional questions. And we look forward to seeing everybody for module 215, where we'll go into a little bit more detail of some of the hot topics we've had over the first couple of weeks. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to you, Larry, and we will see everybody soon. If we don't see you before, we wish everyone a happy holiday season from everyone at FCUSA. Thanks very much.
I agree. Same for me.